Hey guys, I'm going to do another episode of On the Shelf with you today. If you notice, I'm wearing the same clothes as the last video. It's because I'm recording them at the same time, so I'm not being gross and nasty. It's just I wanted to make another one. We're trying to get through the Batman section of my collection, which is the biggest. It takes up a whole shelf. And if you see me looking this way, I'm looking at my shelf. But it takes up a lot. So I'm just trying to pump through them as much as I can so we can get into some other stuff as well, because I have quite a bit. So today we are going to look at probably the most popular graphic novel of all time, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. So since this is on the shelf, I wanted to discuss literally what's on my shelf. So I actually have two. I have this one and then I have this one, and I'll discuss the differences here in a second. This is the first one I bought. This is probably the most definitive Batman story that people talk about. Is it my all-time favorite Batman graphic novel? Probably not. Not because I don't like it, though. I love this story. It's in my top 5. It's just when I like my favorite definitive stories of characters are when I like to tell myself, if someone came up to me that knew nothing about this character and asked, what should I read? I like to have graphic novels that are definitive in that way. All-Star Superman, things like that. This one is not mine. As much as this represents Batman very well, I don't think it's a good jumping on point. It's kind of a end point. As much as it does kind of encapsulate a lot of what Batman's about, and it kind of encapsulates the best, for a lot of people, the best version of Batman. It's probably, for me, I just don't agree in the sense that I think there are other stories people should read before this. Obviously, this was by Frank Miller, colors by Klaus Janson. There's not much to talk about with this book. Everyone has either read it or they know about it. There's also an animated movie that came out a couple years ago. It came out in 2 parts. They also have it in 1 part. It's pretty accurate, but this is pretty much what has established Batman as who he is now. This book is what did that. We were just talking about Batman 66 in the last video. When you talk about that series, that's what was essentially Batman. That was what everyone thought of when they thought of Batman. That is what they thought of with his character, with the tone and the setting. And this kind of brought Batman back to his roots in a way. They did add a lot of things to this that were not originally part of Batman, even in the 1930s, but it brought him back to more of his dark, conflicted, kind of Batman is just as insane as villains kind of way. Basically, if anyone doesn't know, just a quick synopsis, this takes place, I think 10 years after Batman has retired. Bruce Wayne is now in his 50s, and he is being called by himself and his ways of realizing that Batman can never die, and he can never stop being Batman. So the old, more not only world-weary, but also run-down Batman comes out of retirement when there's a new gang of villains trying to attack Gotham, and he basically lights a whole new flame in the world of Batman. The art by Frank Miller, this is probably some of his best personal art. His art got more and more interesting, to say the least, as he got older. I think this is probably peak Frank Miller, besides maybe some Daredevil stuff. And this is the way the panels are laid out, the way that the colors are done, the way the expressions are made. It all makes this book feel like such an epic. And if you haven't read this book, obviously read it, and you love Batman, or if you want to get into Batman, it is a good book to read among many others. And it's inspired many other things. This inspired the Batman v Superman Ben Affleck version of Batman, which, regardless of what you think of that character, they did a pretty good Frank Miller impression. It's inspired a lot of the dark, Dark Knight. It's inspired a lot of Batman books that went on after this. And it's kind of the book that everyone kind of thinks of when they think of Batman. So this is the first edition I bought. This is the I think this is just a regular edition. I bought it years ago. I have it held together with tape because I've read it so much. Pages are still good. Everything's still intact. It's been read a lot. I thought to myself, for my collection, I never was a big fan of this cover because this is just a small panel in the book that they blew up, and I kind of like this on this side with Joker on the other. I think that is kind of a nice little mirror. But I just never thought this represented the book as well because there's a classic cover that everyone thinks of. This was originally, I think, a 4-issue miniseries, and this was probably the most famous Batman cover you could find. This came out for the, is it the 30th? Yeah, 30th anniversary. So I just thought this looked a lot classier. It looked more like Dark Knight Returns. Same exact book. I think there's just a few more interviews and things with it that are a little more new. But I just wanted to pick this one up as well, just to have another cool version. But I wasn't going to throw this volume away. It still works perfectly well. And so this is the one I usually go to when I'm reading it. So yeah, it's just a little more beat up because it's been loved. So yeah, there's not much else I can really say about this book that people, like I said, people haven't already heard. There are some things that I don't like about this book. One of which is, as much as this is probably some of my favorite Frank Miller art. I mean, like, look at this here. I mean, like, this is just incredible stuff. But as much as it is some of my favorite Frank Miller work, there are a couple panels that you do run into from time to time throughout this story that you go, what is happening? Like, what is going on? He does some interesting perspectives, camera perspectives rather, that make it look like what just happened. I can't tell. There's I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read it, but there's a couple panels at the end of the book that feel kind of someone dies, and when they die, it looks like they're like falling off a cliff, but really they are falling on the ground, and there's just no shadow, so it looks weird. You run into situations like that from time to time. The other thing that I never was a huge fan of with this book, but I've grown to like more, is, as much of a big Superman fan as I am, Frank Miller hates Superman. He's pretty much said it out loud. He's not a big fan of the character. He thinks he's too perfect. He thinks he's too strong, and he thinks and he loves Batman. So he makes Superman the government kind of agent in this book. Where they have Batman fight Superman at the end, which inspired Batman v Superman, and Batman essentially wins. And that's not really what bothers me. It's just how Superman is portrayed in this book. He's not really Superman. He's not, and I think that's kind of the point. He wanted a government stooge. He wanted a character that was already established in the comic books, and he picked Superman. So there's a lot of discussion with this book. The one thing that I found very interesting is when this book first came out, a lot of people took the Batman stance and was like, yeah, Batman's totally right, like he's doing everything correct, and Superman is just being a government stooge. He's an asshole. He's just lost all of his pride and everything. And as time has gone on with this book, as much as Batman is still, people enjoy this book and people still agree with Batman, people are looking at the perspective of Superman a little bit more. And I think that's what's made it kind of settle with me better. Is I've seen a lot of discussions online and with many different people about the things that the perspective of Superman. It's almost become a Civil War case where you have Iron Man and Captain America, where most people would side with Captain America. But the point is it's supposed to kind of make you look at the other side and go, well, I kind of see where they're coming from here, right? I even if I don't agree with them, I see where this all led and why they're not 100% wrong. And I mean, there are things Superman does in this book that are very heroic. He saves millions of people, billions of people with this nuclear situation. He really does care about the world still. It's just this is a very different, heightened world than some of the canon superhero stories. That's just kind of a personal thing because, like I said, Superman is my favorite character, and I get a little defensive when he's used in a way that I feel like it would never happen. That's why I'm also not a big fan of Superman as a villain, which he is not in this book. In this book, he is definitely kind of treading a line. So that's one thing. But the Injustice Superman where he's just, what if Superman became evil? It's been overdone a million times. I feel like it's almost always the case nowadays. They always have to have him showing his red eyes with heat vision and always looking crazy. That is starting to get on my nerves, and I think with a lot of people as well. So, but beyond that, the book is great. I think a lot of the things that lead to the battle between Superman and Batman in the end are justified and well written for the story itself. And then, of course, just the arcs. I mean, there's pretty much 3 separate arcs. You got the Two-Face part you have in the Mutants, and then you have Joker, and then you have Superman. And so it's interesting to see all that kind of culminate. It is an epic. It really is. It takes a lot of the main focal points and combines them by the end, and it all kind of heads to one point. I see why it's been so revered for so many years. There are people who are a little more anti-Frank Miller than they used to be. I think Frank Miller has kind of changed his stance from time to time, and he's gone through a lot in his own life that have prevented people from fully agreeing with him more nowadays. But you can't argue that he definitely made a splash in the comic book industry and the things he did. And when it comes to Batman, this is definitely a story that I think people still should pick up when they get a chance. So obviously, if you haven't read it, Batman The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. Check it out whenever you can. Thanks so much, guys, for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.